Hey guys, Jaden here, back with another video. This one we're going to be talking about 5 more tips that kind of helped me when I started a theological library. A little while back I did a video similar to this. Oh, hang on, I'm getting a text here from my wife. Snack. Ooh, yes please. My wife's bringing me a snack apparently. I wonder if I can get a McFlurry out of this. Alright, now that I got my snacks figured out, this is going to be another video going over 5 more tips that kind of helped me get started on my own theological journey with the Theological Library. The first one is going to be don't forget to study languages. And this is kind of like a tip that I don't hear mentioned enough because it's something that I'm really grateful that I've at least done a little bit. And just disclaimer here, I'm not like a language person. I haven't studied very much of it, but I've done a little bit, combining like my self study that I've done a little bit of Greek and a little bit of Latin. And I can't read anything, at all. That's like not my point. But I understand like the grammar, and I understand the words, some of the main vocabulary words that you'll see in like theological books, and it has really been extremely beneficial to me in my reading, especially reading older works. When I run into a Greek word when I'm reading something, what happens is instead of like just being like, oh, I don't know what that is, or having no idea what to do with that, which is how I am when I read Hebrew, because like when I run into Hebrew words when I'm reading books, I don't know what's going on. But like when I run into a Greek word, I can sound it out and I can look it up and kind of see what it is and kind of get a firm grasp, at least. Not when I look at it for the rest of the time in my reading book, I'm not like just lost. It's been helpful for me. And I'm not saying I understand it all here. Like far from it, guys. I know practically nothing. I'm just saying I can at least not be lost. Okay, that's the point. I can at least not be lost, especially if you're like a layman like me and you're not planning on going to seminary. At least spend a little bit of time studying languages. Get like let's see if I have some stuff here. Oh, there's my Greek. So I have beginning with New Testament Greek, an introductory study of the grammar and syntax of the New Testament by Benjamin Merkel, Robert Plummer. This is fantastic if you're wanting to learn Greek, because I bought it specifically because he has free lectures online. And guys, that's invaluable. Tremendously valuable if you're trying to self-learn Greek like I was doing a little bit. This is awesome, as well as just an interlinear. It's a valuable tool for seeing at least a little bit of what's going on. And not saying that we're going to anywhere be at the level of theologians that spend their entire careers going over original languages, trying to understand context and all those things. But what I'm just saying is like just don't be lost. Like I said, don't be lost. The second tip that I have is to just read older books and prefer older books. What I have learned is that as a modern society, we are so uneducated, and I feel like we have just this feeling towards people that were around in the past, and we just think that they didn't know anything. We have our smartphones and can look up any knowledge, and everybody that lives today is so much smarter than the cavemen that lived 500,000 years ago.
Wait, SpongeBob! We're not cavemen! We have technology!
If you read the Puritans and you read the theologians of the past, the reformers and the church fathers, like especially like I read Augustine, and I just think that they are just so much more trained in philosophy and theology and languages, and they're just able to articulate it in writing in just ways that I just do not connect with in the same way that like modern books do. It just seems like nowadays we don't even think like people back then were able to just read and write and articulate their thoughts with such clarity and such brevity. And nowadays we can't even think unless we can pull out our phone and Google what the answer is to something, and Google AI tells us whatever we're supposed to believe on such a topic. And then there's a reason that their works are still in print, because they're hundreds of years old. New books, they get a push right away for their first printing. If they do well, maybe they'll last a little bit longer, especially if they're written by a famous author. Then they'll last, another 5-10 years or possibly longer. But these are books that have been with us for hundreds of years. Hundreds of years. People still study them in academia. Like these are books that changed generations. Like we're talking the most important theological and philosophical works that have ever been written. Things like Calvin's Institutes, like Augustine's Confessions. Like these are books that changed history. And there's a reason that Christians throughout the centuries, throughout all these generations, have always pointed these books as being so meaningful to them. And they just, we shouldn't be looking down on them as being from the past or old, or things that aren't as important, in favor of reading our modern books, which, yeah, maybe they're easier to read, but the depth of the knowledge that you can obtain from them is so much lower than that you can get from an ancient work. It's back. You got the snacks? I just had a bowl of ice cream, root beer float style. All right. Moving on to number 3 is just a practical tip, is that buying books can be addicting, and no matter how much space you have, you run out. Okay, I'm learning this like hardcore right now because you can't see it, but I have an ugly stack of books going on right down here. It's just stuff I don't really know what to do with. I even, before I did this episode, I threw a book out in the hallway. And I'm running out of space, people. So I've stopped buying books altogether. Well, no, I take that back. I've stopped like just going to like a used bookstore and buying theology books, at least for the most part. And what I've also stopped is like buying sets. I don't really like buying sets so much anymore. It hasn't been something that's like intrigued me much lately. And that's not to say that sets, I'm not trying to act like sets are wrong, or any of that is wrong. But my point is, sets take up a lot of space. And I have really peculiar or very specific interest of what I'm really wanting to read. Like I'm really digging deeper and deeper into like American church history and dispensationalism. That's kind of like, that's been really a focus of mine. And like there's some specific books on that topic that I want to read, and I don't have the space for giant sets. I don't. And actually, what I need to do is just take these bookshelves out and just completely transform this room. But I don't have the money for that either. So maybe you guys could donate to me. I did set up my buy me a coffee thing. That'd be a lot of coffees. But practically, people, books take up space, and we only have so much space. So instead of just like getting this rush from buying a book, you should really think, what am I going to do with this book? Am I actually going to read it within the next, 6 months to a year? If no, probably shouldn't buy it. If yes, I'd say buy it. And even then, with books that I've like know that I would read if I had them, I still kind of ease off, because I say I got so many books here that I need to read that I already have. I should do that before I go out and buy more books. So yeah, just know, buying books, they take up space, and you got to deal with the fact that you have too many books. So tip number 4 is that the phone is addicting. And I've talked about this a lot, but this little guy right here is a no-no when it comes to reading. Like I don't even want it anywhere near me. And if you're watching this right now, pull it out and go to your settings, look at your screen time. And it's going to be different for everyone, but I noticed a strong correlation between like high screen times and low productivity, at least with like how much I'm reading. Not saying like I stopped reading altogether, but I'm just talking like being able to focus when I read. Social media apps like TikTok, like Instagram, they're made with this feed function where they just are constantly giving you more and more, like reels, hits, dopamine hits, just things to keep you inside the app, to keep scrolling, to stay there, to get the next ad, to get the next, hit. So not only are these just like, they're huge time wasters, but it's just simply draining, because I notice as I give my mind brain rot, it's really hard to give my mind brain food. And trying to switch your brain off from that reel, that just passive consumption of media to a more active reading and trying to like engage with the author's thoughts, especially when you're talking deep theological subjects. It's just difficult. It can be really hard to get your brain to do that. So just some tips, like just one, be mindful of your phone, be mindful of what you're doing on your phone, and possibly if you can, put it in another room while you're reading, or at least put it out of sight. And especially like if I'm sitting down and I can feel the phone in my pocket as I'm reading, that can be a distraction for me as well. And it's just something to be aware of, because the phones are an important tool for life that we can gain a lot of value of, but it also can be just a massive distraction. And when our goals are to read more books, we got to be mindful not to let this thing get in the way of our goals. The final tip is to not forget the purpose of reading as we read. A lot of people, I think, when we read hard books or read theology books, we can look at this as like kind of like an exclusivist thing, like a club, like, hey, guy, look at me, I read a super hard, like, ooh, look at me, insert super deep theological philosophical book that's 2,000 pages. Ooh, look, I read it, I'm smart. Guys, it's just not, it's not the point. That should never be our goal, to chase vanity with reading books, or even just like the books you own. Like it can be vain. And I think some of the things we see on social media can be vain. And that's something we need to remember as we are reading theology. We are trying to deepen our relationship with Christ and to make ourselves more Christ-like. We're trying to learn more about the way that God has revealed himself to us. And in doing that, we are reading books to help us do so. What we don't want to do is to allow ourselves to become, prideful and arrogant with our growing knowledge, and being able to say, well, look what I've done. Look at all the things I know, and become like the Pharisees. And it just kind of also reminds me of the final verses of Ecclesiastes. And moreover, because the preacher was wise, he still taught the people knowledge. Yes, he pondered and sought out and set in order many proverbs. The preacher sought to find acceptable words, and what was written was upright words of truth. The words of the wise are like goads, and the words of scholars are like well-driven nails given by one shepherd. And further, my son, be admonished by these, of making many books there is no end, and much study is wearisome to the flesh. Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is man's alls. For God will bring every work into judgment, including every secret thing, whether good or evil. It kind of reminds me of that famous Socrates quote. One of my favorite quotes, by the way. The more I know, the more I realize I know nothing. That quote kind of sums up learning. Like there's just so much out there to learn, and it humbles me so fast in like realizing I'm never going to know it all. And that kind of bothers me. But at the same time, we should remember that the point of learning and knowledge is to, like this verse says, to fear God and keep his commandments. That is what man's all is. It's not a vain chasing of knowledge for our own glory in being able to say, look how smart I am. But no, it should be to build our relationship with Christ, and to worry ourselves with endless study in an ongoing, never-ending fashion. Like that'll drive a man mad or drive him to pride and arrogance. So it's an important reminder looking at this verse and saying, hey, just keep yourself in check. Remember what the true goal is. The goal is Christ. And to remember the chief end of man's chief end is to glorify God and enjoy him forever. And we should apply that to books in our reading and theology and our study, as well as life. So guys, this has been Jaden with Kingdom Curiou. That was 5 more tips for you, just things that have been kind of helpful to me, or things that I've thought through as I've been reading for the last few years. And I hope it's been a helpful list for you. If you guys have any more tips or any thoughts on some of these, just leave a comment down below. Let me know. What do you think? What's a good tip that someone like me should have as I continue striving to learn more about the Lord and further my walk with Christ? If you guys want to see my other video on 5 tips I wish I knew before starting my theological library, I'll leave it right here. So thanks guys for watching. I appreciate it very much. Hit the like button, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks.